I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. I wanted to host a distraction stream because it's Tuesday, November 5th. 5:30 p.m. Eastern, and we are just going to hang out and chat about different cases. Y'all can feel free to ask me questions. I am a licensed psychologist in Virginia. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and then I went on to get my master's and doctorate in clinical psych. I was interested in the intersection of spirituality and psychology, and so that's what I studied in school. But I am just so grateful, so glad to be here. Please let me know if y'all have questions because like we're we're just gonna get through tonight. And I am gonna disappear as stuff starts coming in because my husband is ordering pizza and so I am going to go feed myself and feed my child between like 7 and 7:30. But yes. So I was asked a question about the DSM-5 and how I use it to get to a diagnosis. So this is something that I pride myself on. So I try to look at a case, and the way that I explain it to clients is to get to know their story. And when I'm doing a psychological evaluation, I use intelligence testing and personality testing to put together a profile of an individual. And I let people know that normally when they read my report, they're going to be nodding their head like, yep, yep, this seems about right. And the manual that I use to diagnose is called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. When I was in undergrad, so when I was working on my bachelor's, I took a class called Abnormal Psychology. And that is where we learn about all the different disorders. And our professor warned us as you learn about these different disorders, you are going to think you have everything. You're going to think, "Oh, I think I might have this. Oh, I think I might have that." Because a person has certain symptoms, that doesn't mean that they meet criteria for the actual diagnosis. So the symptoms have to cause impairment. And that's been kind of my difficulty with getting an ADHD diagnosis is I have a lot of coping skills and adjustments and things I do that kind of make my brain and my life work for me. And the things that are difficult, when it's difficult for me to get notes done, to get reports done, to do those things, I work for myself. So I'm able to make adjustments to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. If I was working for like a military hospital, I would probably have to be on medication because there would be certain requirements. You would have to get things in by a certain time. You might have to do your notes before you leave the office or I don't know, like me trying to fit into a very rigid system versus my flexible, I work for myself, I do what I want, that would cause a lot of difficulty for me. Now, I have more of a mild ADHD. I have worked with people that are quite severe, and often the more symptoms, the more impairment, sometimes the earlier individuals are diagnosed, but it's just it's all a thing. If y'all can let us know how you're doing in the chat. Thank you for everyone that's watching. How do you know if the person evaluating is lying to you? So I give a test that it can tell me their response pattern. I don't do forensic evaluations. So, in a forensic evaluation, someone who is pleading not guilty by reason of insanity would have an incentive to make themselves look more pathological, to make themselves look more disordered than they might actually be. The great example for that is Letitia Stout, where she got Dr. Lewis to say that she had dissociative identity disorder when we're all looking and seeing like, no, like this lady's just a beat, like she's a mess and she probably had anxiety, but I didn't feel she met my own personal thoughts. I did not assess her. I can't, talk about what diagnosis she does and doesn't have. But the other forensic evaluators that met with her said, no, she does not have that diagnosis. And if I did parenting evaluations, if people were involved with the court, they would have a certain incentive to lie. And the testing I give, it has certain things where I can tell if somebody is presenting an overly positive view of themselves or if they're presenting an overly negative view of themselves. So that's where we're just gonna breathe. We're gonna get through it, and I'm feeling kind of optimistic, and so we'll see. We'll see. Um, I'm Yes, and I have time in the morning to get my own therapy session if I need it. Election day can come with a lot of anxiety. I did a whole video on just election stress. So with the DSM-5, like I said, it's not only does a person have these symptoms, but it's also do they meet criteria for this diagnosis. I wanted to talk about the Melody Farris trial. And I'm gonna try to get to YouTube and do a poll because there's like a special way for me to do this. So let me go into YouTube Studio and let me start a poll on if y'all watch this trial, because if the majority of people haven't watched it, then I'll give a more thorough recap. If most people, let's just do a 1 or 2 in the chat, okay? So if you have watched the Melody Ferris chat, put a 1. If you know nothing about the Melody Ferris chat, no Melody Ferris, please put a 2. So 1, I watched it. 2, I have no idea. I need a recap. So let me know while I pull up. This was a difficult case and a juror that was deadlocked. So this I think the jury took 3 days. I think they deliberated for 3 days, and at one point they came back and said that they were. So yay. Okay, so I'm seeing some ones, I'm seeing a lot more 2s, and 2s meant we need more information. So let me give, because I want the update that doesn't have the do, 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 the actual the family dynamics in this case. So there were multiple children that testified for the prosecution, and then there was one adult child that testified for the defense. Let me see. Let's just let's see what happens if we go here. I'll make sure to put the link to any videos that I show down in the chat. Just give me one moment to find a good overview. Thank y'all for being here. Like I said, like we are just hanging out, avoiding all of this because it can be a lot. Okay. So I found something. Let's see it. And this was called the news likes to give trials, they like to give them nicknames, and so this trial was nicknamed the Burn Pile Trial, and this happened in Georgia. It's my understanding, I think the trial was held in Canton, Georgia, but Melody Farris was charged with malice, capital M, felony, capital M, aggravated assault, and concealing the death of another and making a false statement in the death of her husband, Gary Farris, who was a prominent Atlanta area attorney. Melody, who had been out on bond during her trial, was immediate. Okay, but yeah, so the couple was married for 38 years. uh, and they lived on a working farm in Alpharetta that spanned approximately 10 acres. They lived in the main house together, while one of their four adult children lived in an apartment above the barn. On July 5th, 2018, deputies with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office were called to the property for a report of human remains and a fire. Okay. So July 5th, 2018, deputies are called because they found human remains in a fire. And I think this is what they call the burn pit. Detectives initially believed that Gary, the husband, could have suffered a medical issue and fallen into the fire, but quickly began investigating the case as a homicide after a bullet was found lodged in one of his rib bones. The bullet, a .38 caliber, did not match any weapon found during searches of the property. Investigators said that the Farris marriage was rocky, and that's putting it nice, that's putting it kindly. Like, Melody initially denied having extramarital affairs when asked by investigators, but later claimed she did have an affair with Roy Rusty Barton, and I think his mom, y'all correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, people that have followed this case. So her kind of boyfriend at the time, his mom is missing a 38, a .38 caliber weapon. And the mom, so uh recovery addict who is a streamer here on YouTube, he was covering the case and he was just like, "Wow, I wonder if Roy's mom, like I wonder if she has I wonder where, like he just made a theory of I wonder what's happening." And that woman was watching his channel and she called the prosecution, his stepmom, thank you. So it was Roy's stepmom. So she was watching Recovery Addict stream where he's saying like, "Wait a minute, I think I broke the case." Like I think she's the one who oh, and stepmom is Melody's cousin, Martha Jane. Thank you. And Martha Jane came in to testify. So let's see if we can find Martha Jane's testimony. Um, I can find it. YouTube. We need to hear from Martha Jane was sweet. Um, okay. So we're not going to listen to all of it. We're not going to listen to all of it, but let's listen to a little bit. Uh-oh. That must not be. I must have canceled my stream. I did. Here we go. So this is lovely Martha Jane. We're gonna speed her up. We'll see how it happens at 1.25. We'll just see. We're not gonna play all of this, but Martha Jane in the middle of the trial. Okay, so like in the middle of the trial, we Martha Jane reaches out to the prosecution and is like, "I'm missing my weapon," and and so she ends up coming up and testifying. So let's watch.
Office called me and asked me some questions and told me or asked me if I knew the trial was starting. That was a shock. Okay. I did not know that. So that's the way I knew it was going to be on, but I didn't know.
You're talking about weeks before the trial when we talked.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, then someone called me and told me I didn't know about court TV, and they told me. So I looked and finally found that may not.
Okay. And the funny part is she was actually watching Recovery Addict stream because she keeps saying court TV, but it was the man in the corner. And the way that Recovery Addict does his stream, he does his stream like this. And so it was the man in the corner with the heads, I think maybe with headphones, I'm not sure. But it was definitely Recovery Addict stream. Um so I did a stream earlier. So I cover what other people have covered. So I'm not there at the trial. So I've covered the psychological testimony with Delphi. I did that stream earlier. So please check that one out if you haven't checked that one out yet. Let's hear from Martha Jane.
Not even have been the first day.
How'd you look?
I have a Kindle, and I
Well,
Googled.
Well, Miss Martha, that's not true, is it? You don't have a Kindle. How many Kindles you got?
Well, I have two. I have two of everything.
Did you bring the two with you
I did.
to read?
Uh-huh.
All right. So did you Google it or something?
I Googled Court TV, Melody Walker Farris, Cherokee County, and I found them, and I don't even know what the first was. And like I said, this would have been after 10 o'clock.
How much of the trial have you? No,
I did, and then let's see, this is the third week, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't watch any after I talked to you all.
Talking about last week?
Yeah.
Did we tell you to stop watching?
Mm-hmm.
Up to that point, had anybody told you not to watch it?
No.
So it's my understanding that she was not called as a witness or something. Like, I don't think she was, because nobody knew that she was going to get up and say what she's about to say. But, and the juror that talked to Court TV did not say that any of this was what sealed the deal. But I just thought this was like, this is why I think trials should be streamed and there should be this transparency. Because from home, she was watching and she got convicted to come forward that for the last, since 2018, her 38 has been missing.
Mm-mm.
And did you see Rusty testify?
I saw part of his testimony.
How did that make you feel?
Disappointed.
After seeing Rusty testify, did you make a phone call to Cherokee County?
I did.
How did you? Who'd you call?
Well, I Googled Cherokee County Detention Center, and it came up 3 names, sheriff and their number. I don't remember the second, and then the criminal investigator, and I called that number.
How were you feeling when you called that number?
Awful. I had a heavy, heavy heart.
Did you sleep the night before?
I have worried about this for a long time.
Do you remember who you? I think that was last Friday, October 18th. Is that when you called? Today's Friday.
I believe so. I believe it was a week ago today.
I have around 10 o'clock our time, so it'll be about 9 o'clock your time. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who you talked to at the sheriff's office?
Detective Hand.
Hand? Hand, thank you. Now, how was he to you?
He was very nice. He told me his name. I didn't even tell him my name. I think I started out with, I have a heavy heart. And then I told him that I had a gun that was missing. And then,
And I think she called on a recorded line because I think all of this was recorded. Because I think their investigative line, I think they record the calls and they did play this because the defense did not want her to testify. Like, this is in the middle of their trial. This is throwing a major wrench in everything. The defense did not want her to testify. That was my understanding. This was, I think, in the middle of the Sarah Boone trial too. So I was really focusing more on the Sarah Boone trial than this one.
Let me
he
talk.
asked me my name.
Yes, ma'am. Let me talk to you about some guns. I want to talk about. Now, Roy Sr. was a jokester, wasn't
he? Yes.
I want to turn your attention, I believe, and you tell me if it's not right or if it's around that time. I want to turn your attention to, well, before I get there, did you buy Mr. Roy a certain type of pistol?
I did. I bought him a .357 Magnum.
Do you remember what year you bought that pistol for him?
No. No, I don't.
Do you remember
it would have been.
What decade we're dealing with?
It would have been probably in the early 80s.
Okay. You remember where you got it from?
No, probably, but I don't remember exactly. We had a gun shop out of Winchester, which was a neighboring town, a Ray Judge that everybody went and bought guns from. And so you men have a way of,
Okay, so what's going to happen is he is going to buy her a weapon. And like he bought her, and she never used, like, she ended up keeping it in a special place. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit.
stuck in each cartridge. And of course, he joked that that's the only way he could get away giving me a gun. And that's probably all I saw.
Now, this pistol, did it have a holster?
It didn't then, but he got a holster for it.
What kind of holster was it?
It was just a leathery looking, it wasn't a thick leather, very slick, and it didn't have the belt on it. It was just to put the gun in, so that he wanted me to keep it in my closet. In our bedroom, his closet was on his side, mine was on mine, and he kept his 357 Magnum in his and wanted me to keep mine in mine.
And
I never did touch or hold it. I kept mine under my nightstand
the
where no one
38,
could see it.
you talking about the 38 pistol?
Uh-huh.
But the holster was a leather holster?
It was.
Miss Martha, you said Mr. Roy kept his gun on his side in his closet?
In his closet.
When you called law enforcement, you told them this information you're telling us now, is that right?
Yes.
I had to look it up because I didn't know. Tell them how you described your closet.
Fibber McGee's, and you all may not know, it was an old cartoon. And if you open your closet door, you're liable to get hit in the head with something.
Now, let me go back. Your husband, ma'am, I'm sorry, when did he pass away?
2014.
And Mr. Roy did he get sick around that time, or was it a little before?
The day that I went to Nashville to schedule my surgery.
Okay, so because we have time, we need to figure out what Fibber McGee is. And so it looks like Fibber McGee and Molly was a TV show. And I guess when they open the closet, a bunch of stuff comes out. So I'm guessing Fibber McGee, I think it's like a closet, and then a bunch of stuff comes out. That's what it sounds like. Let's get back to Miss Martha.
He had a second stroke, and from that time on, he was either in the hospital or nursing home.
And would you have to go to doctor's visits and things around that time too?
Mm-hmm.
At some point after Mr. Roy passed away, did Melody come up, or during that time, was she helping you go to the doctor's appointment?
She did.
Was she staying with you during these times?
She did.
Okay, so Melody, during the time she's having all these doctor's appointments and everything, and I think we're talking about I think we might be talking about 2018. I don't know. I think we're talking about 2018. I could be wrong, but yes.
Now, after Mr. Roy passed away, tell the jury what you did with the 357 Magnum pistol, Roy's pistol, and your 38 pistol special. Tell the jury what you did with it.
In one of our spare bedrooms, I had it wasn't a cedar chest, but it was a chest type that had quilts, sheets, that sort of thing. And I took those guns and put them in the chest. There was a TV on top of the chest. I don't remember, but I put a lot of stuff on top of the chest so that I didn't think anybody would look in the chest. It was too much trouble.
Did you personally put those in there?
I did.
Just those two guns?
Just those.
Let me show you some photographs. This is the first one in Barton 1.1. Do you recognize? Did we come up and pick you up to come to court today?
Yes,
And were you there when they were able to take some photographs of this?
I was.
Tell the jury what this is a photograph of.
This is a gun safe that we have. And I guess because those guns had been upstairs and Roy wanted them for my protection, I put them in the chest instead of in the gun safe.
This is photograph 2 for you. Did you also find some 38 special ammunition?
I did.
Is this the box that looked like?
Yes.
Do you remember what all ammunition you had for the 38 special through the years?
On my shells that were there, it was a box that had a PGY, which is an old, I mean, it hadn't been in business forever. And that's where my shells came from, but they weren't there.
And this is the shells that they opened up while you were there.
Yes.
And that's 4.
All right. And so they're going to go through all of this with her weapon. I'm going to fast forward.
And he would, of course, he had 411 hunting coats and hunting. He had a backpack and everything else that you could imagine for hunting.
Did you find anything that has pockets in the hunting clothing?
And so the captions are saying honey, but she's saying hunting. So they're talking about his hunting clothes.
Yeah, I found that, and peppermint candy. He was so afraid he'd get a coughing spell that he'd always carry peppermint candy with him.
Judge, I'm tuning in as M. Barton 8, which I previously to, just for the record.
All right, any objections?
Okay.
That's submitted.
And Ms. Martha, this is the saw with the bullets that you found in there.
Right.
Did you find any other ammunition for a 38 special in your house?
No.
But you said some were missing? Were some bullets or ammunition missing?
That went with my gun. He bought me a box of shells to go with my gun,
Okay.
and they were missing.
So it's not those boxes.
No, because it was.
Do you remember the brand of the
And that's important. That the ones that went with her weapon that they're missing.
CNY, which was in the mall, and he just went there and bought the shells for me, but they weren't there.
Do you know what brand they are?
No, I didn't know.
These are the bullets that you found in the sock in
Mhm.
photograph 8.
Mhm.
9, just the safe again. All right. What is this one?
That's a 357 Magnum.
That's Roy's gun.
Yes.
Now, in this photograph 11 for you.
Oh, no. No.
All right, I'll go.
You were supposed to do a close-up.
I'm on 12 now. Just tell the jury what that room is.
Have you ever heard of a junk room? I'm trying to go through and get rid of it. I'm going to have to downsize. And I move things in there. But this is the chest at the end of the bed. Now, I've still got things piled on it. But I had a TV and I don't know what else. I would get, or I do get, my nephew Bruce, who is, he's 59. And sorry, I told that Bruce.
Okay, so we get the gist of it. After all this goes down, she realizes that her weapon is missing. But it was when she decided to come forward after watching the trial and all this coverage. She is absolutely adorable. I thought there were some interesting family dynamics in this case. And so let me know. I keep stop sharing and then it disappears. And then I think I'm sharing and I'm not. All right, here we go. So, all right. This case is so I believe these first 3 siblings
playing out inside of a court.
So these first 3 siblings, they testified for the prosecution, and then this last one, I think I'm mirrored. Let me see which way. So the one all the way on the end, she testified for the defense, and because the defense blamed Scott, the brother right here. The defense blamed him that he had a temper. I think he's the one that lived above the garage or above the barn or whatever. Like he's the one that lived on the property. It seems like everyone at times it sounds like they all kind of depended on dad at some point. Some of them were more independent than others. And I think the jury agreed that Scott really didn't have a motive. And I don't know if Melody just wanted access to all of her husband's money. Like, it was so just all over the place. So we're gonna watch a little bit of this and we're gonna chat. Let me know if y'all have questions. This is from Court TV. I will add the links after all this.
Courtroom in the middle of a murder trial. Meet the Farris family. Melody and Gary Farris were married for 38
So this is a sister. This is not Melody. So this is one of the daughters, but that's Gary, the father.
years. They lived on a sprawling farm estate in Cherokee County, Georgia, that spanned approximately 10 acres. Gary Farris was a wildly successful attorney in Atlanta, but his marriage was a bit unconventional. The couple lived in the main house on their property, but lived on separate floors of that home for decades. And both Melody and Gary appeared to be involved in relationships outside of their marriage. Meanwhile, their son, Scott Farris, one of their 4 adult children, lived in an apartment above the barn on their property. On July 5th, 2018, Gary was found by Scott, an Iraq veteran, dead in a burn pile with a bullet in his ribs. And now it seems like 3 of the couple's children believe Melody is responsible. Melody, though, is pointing the finger right back at her kids. And tonight, testimony from a 4th child named Amanda, called by Melody and her defense attorneys. Tonight, it's another wild ride on the Ferris wheel with this family drama playing out inside of a courtroom as
So that's I hope. So if I ever start with the puns, like y'all have to remind me of this, but that's because it's the Ferris family and they make it a wheel like it's this drama. But like, I don't know. I can't. I can't.
the jury tries to figure out who killed Gary Farris.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. The drama continues in Georgia. What a case, what a mess this family is, the Farris family. This is getting ugly inside of the courtroom. Gary Farris was murdered, and that murder was covered up. That's why he's in a burn pile. It's not an accident. You're destroying evidence. You're destroying the victim of the crime. And whoever did this, and you know, it looks like it's someone in the family. That's the way it's looking. There's no evidence of anyone from outside of the family having anything to do with this. In terms of the murder, if you want to point to lovers here and there, you can do that if you want. But the way it's playing out, it's like the pointing the fingers are, you know.
And they really are pointing it. And he's going to get to the fact that it really does seem like a real life soap opera because the kids, because the daughter in the middle is the one who testified for mom, but I think the mom moved in with her because I don't think Melody could support herself on her own without Gary's money. And so Melody went and lived with that sister that's in the middle of all of this. And they all testified in this trial.
With this family. And all the drama surrounding each member of the family. They all had issues. And you know, every family has issues. But then when it results in murder, it goes to the next level. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're hearing. And
the jury, like I said, the jury deliberated for days. And I was hearing because I think there was mixed emotions about the daughter that testified for the mom. And I tried to hear from some different perspectives. Let me just see if they played portions of this. Okay, I'm gonna go back. So trigger warning, she lost her dad. She's definitely upset about it.
A lot of problems, and they would just sweep things under the rug. Take a listen.
There was a lot of things that happened before that moment that I think should have been taken care of. We weren't just putting money on it to fix it. Okay. I think a lot of things that have happened in our family get swept under the rug. And they're never addressed.
So this case reminded me of what might have happened if Brian Boone had never left Sarah. Because to me, so from what I saw, it seemed like Gary didn't really set many boundaries, or when he finally tried to set a boundary, that's when, like, really things happened. Like, it seemed like there was some enabling a little. And sometimes, because let's say he worked all the time, it sounded like he was a good dad. And um and sometimes when a parent works a lot and you have money, you have resources, sometimes what you do is you want to, you know, make sure that your kids are okay. And but there's a thin line between helping and enabling. And sometimes I can be protecting my child from the consequences of their own actions. And I think sometimes that guilt, people can try to compensate for that with money. Let's keep going.
And they're not taken seriously. But a sin is a sin. And
Oh, so I think she's upset that so she starts bringing up sin about like the affairs. That was she talked about that.
great.
Take your time. I feel like we've been in this trial for a while.
He was a very smart man. I'm sorry. There was no doubt in my mind he loved all of us. He made that known, and he was very sarcastic.
Lawyers are notorious for that.
He had the lawyer personality for sure, but I mean, he was the dad that you walk down the stairs and he'd whistle and go, "You're a movie star." He was just such a big man, and he'd come and he'd just wrap his arms around you. But then in this sense, he'd turn around and fart on you, and you'd just be like he was sweet, and he was witty. He could say things that cut you to the bone. He definitely demanded respect in that aspect, I guess you would say. I was always fearful of him in the sense that I wanted to respect him and I wanted him to be proud of me.
Okay. And so she gave a lot of her testimony. Like I said, they blamed it on Scott. So this is the one that they blamed it on.
Yeah, this is raw. This is real, and this is and there's a lot for this jury to try to figure out. Like, you got to figure this out. This is an actual murder mystery to a certain extent for the jury.
Okay, so they're not going to play the actual testimony. They just showed his picture. They had some people talk. I think they mostly centered on her testimony. Okay. And then there was another brother that testified. I want to see if they play it. Let's see.
They found a bullet in my father's rib. And now this was being treated as a homicide. And there were some follow-up questions, and they asked me, who would anybody ever benefit from your father being killed? And I was very frank. I said, well, yeah, I mean, my mom.
Could you imagine?
I'm going to fast forward through Vinny. But I appreciate this compilation. Thank you, Court TV.
From my brother saying we're taking daddy to the hospital. And then I got some sort of communication from my mother saying, that he was in the hospital or we were taking him to the hospital.
Did you know why?
My father would have he would call them his spells, okay, where he would be very lethargic, almost, how can I put this? Just very, very tired, couldn't stay awake, didn't feel well.
You saw your father in the hospital
Correct.
in April,
And he was fine.
Yes.
he appeared fine. And how long was he in hospital for?
So the thing I want to add is I believe the prosecution's theory is that Gary was pew-pewed, and I have to, so it's YouTube. I have to be careful with certain words, even like it's a thing that this happened in the basement. And then somehow he got to the burn, like somehow he got outside to the burn pit. And so they think something happened in the basement. And that's where a lot of people were thinking, how could she have done that by herself? How did she get him from there to there? And we are going to listen because a juror came forward and talked about it. And so we will definitely listen to that too. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. So this the other sister. Let's keep going.
All of this.
It first started like what is going on? Like, when he said, I'm going to go up here and see what's going on. Like, it was almost like, I need to figure out what's going on. But like, when he got there and started looking around and like, they couldn't find him, like he was frantic. And when he called me about them after they had found him, essentially, it was just devastation in his voice.
What about your sister, Amanda? How did she sound?
She was crying. She was crying. I mean, we were all extremely devastated.
Someone's going to ask the jury or one of the jurors that came forward and decided to talk about her experience as a juror. They asked if Melody came off cold to her. And I think she's trying to manage her emotions. I believe, and y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, I don't think she showed much grief about her husband being deceased. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that she did not show a lot like grief. It's my understanding that Melody didn't. So let's keep going.
I was talking to her during that time. I mean, she's still my mom. So like, I didn't like act any differently with her.
Okay. And at some point, did that change?
Yeah, I mean, she became more hostile. She was more aggressive with us. She was demanding money. Like she would like bring up instances where my dad had lent us money or something. And she would be like, it's time to pay me back. Like I need you to pay me back now. And I was just like, well, I had
So this one kind of reminds me of the woman that was the author, the woman that had like a nice husband. Like he seemed like he was a great guy. Everybody loved him. Y'all, okay. I have a new sound. Did it do it? I don't think it did it. Y'all know me. I don't do names. I don't do names. So let me go to the chat. See if y'all put yes, Nancy. Oh, Nancy Drew. I want to call her Nancy Drew. Nancy Brawfrey. I can't say the last name. She I think she just wanted all the money. She didn't want to divorce him and get half. Like, I think she was greedy. And I think he had just taken out, I think there was a $500,000 life insurance policy that he had just done within the year, I think. If you increase your life insurance policy, don't tell your loved ones. Like just don't. I'm not laughing because it's funny, but like also I have another one. Don't do crimes. Just don't do crimes. Okay. So that's the other one that I have. I think she wanted it all. I think she just wanted it all. And I think she thought she was entitled to it. And if she had divorced him, also he's a lawyer, so he probably could have I don't think they had like a happy marriage in a long time. She had full out affairs. I think he had some affairs, and I wonder if she thought she could get stuck with not that much. But I think she wanted it all. Cuz also they were living separate lives. It was just wrong. Oy, and that's just contempt. Now, contempt is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or the whatever. Gottman. So Gottman's four horsemen, not apocalypse. Is it apocalypse? I don't know. But it's one of those. Contempt is one of those things that definitely will destroy a marriage. And I don't think it was anything that they would have worked on or anything.
Payment plan with him. Like I wasn't just going to give him like a lump sum. And, she was getting pretty aggressive with that. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the best way to describe her behavior.
So to me, it didn't come off like. So I think this daughter, it seems like she definitely felt that her mom was involved somehow. Um, and this was a whole thing. Let's go on ahead and show the verdict. So the jury, 15 hours and 24 minutes of deliberation. Because at one point the jury was deadlocked. And then they finally came to an agreement. There were some shocking text messages. Like this case had a lot. It's just too much for us to cover in this period of time. All right, let's go with this part, the verdict.
All right, I understand we have a verdict. I know we have lots of folks that are interested in the outcome of this case here. I've also heard at least 6 Amber Alerts while I was in the back buzzing in here. So if that happens, I'll just ignore it and pretend I didn't hear it. I want everyone to just understand that the jury's been working diligently on this case for the last 4 weeks of trial and for the last several days of deliberation. I don't want any outbursts one way or the other. If you don't think you'll be able to restrain yourself one way or the other, then you need to step out. All right, anything else we need to take up before we bring the jurors in? All right, we have our 2 alternates. All right, go ahead and bring them. Well, we have 4, but.
So this judge seemed kind of casual to me. I think the judge did a great job. I think because I think this court is just a little bit more casual. Melody does not stand. She stands for the judge, but she does not stand every time the jury comes in and out. The juror that talks says that that it wasn't. That's what I meant by casual. Like he seemed very casual, extremely laid back. Extremely laid back. And I don't think he realized how popular the case was until all of this came out that, hey, this is streaming. And because Recovery Addict hosted a verdict watch, and Court TV did a verdict watch, Law and Crime did a verdict watch, and there are like thousands of people across all of those platforms actively watching for this verdict, because the jury did want the definition of the charges, like legally what the charge would mean. The jury asked a few questions. At one point, I think on Friday, the jury came back that they were hung, and the judge was like, sleep, like we're going to come back on Monday. And they came back on Monday, and that's when they came to their verdict. I do think Melody's lawyers are going to appeal. They might try to talk to some of the jurors to just make sure that everybody's verdict was like free, like it was their true verdict. I'm sure it was, but because I don't know how they got deadlocked. Like, I don't know if there was one or two people, and those are some things that we may never know. But I could imagine her attorneys would want more information about what was kind of going on with all of that.
Only two are.
I'm gonna fast forward a little. I think I can do closed captioning and figure out. Okay. Okay, I'll just play from here.
Tell you, it's now been clarified and
Yeah. So the court TV talking. All right. So let's go from here.
If you'll hand it to the bailiff, then I'll review it, and then I'll hand it back to you. All right. If you'll hand that back to the foreman. All right, sir, as foreman, I'm going to have you stand and publish your verdict. You can do that just by saying, "We, the jury," and then to each count, say, "We find the defendant guilty or not guilty," as to each count.
All right. We, the jury, as to the count 5, we find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 4, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 3, we find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 2, find the defendant guilty. And we, the jury, as to count 1, find the defendant guilty.
All right, we'll hand it back to the bailiff. Madam Bailiff, you just show it to counsel.
So at this point, I don't know if it just hasn't hit her yet or something, because she's going to seem shocked and emotional as they poll the jury. So we will watch that part real quick.
All right, anything y'all want to take up?
No. Oh, we would ask you to poll.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the defense has asked that you be polled. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to run through.
So I've never seen, and everybody handles things differently. And just because things handle things in different ways doesn't necessarily mean anything. But with this one, like, she becomes increasingly more anxious or something. Like, I don't know if it's hitting her, like, if the reality is, because with the jury being dead, like, they could have had a hung jury. They were really close to having a hung jury. Let's keep it going.
Each one of you, if you still remember your original jury number, if you don't, we'll give you some prompting. But if you'll stand up, we will then ask you a series of questions, and then I'll move to the next juror. After you see me do it twice, you'll understand what we're doing. All right. So, Mr. Bailiff, Mr. Clerk, if you'll call the juror.
Number 3.
All right, ma'am. Is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes, sir.
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes, sir.
And is it still your verdict?
Yes, sir.
All right, you can be seated.
Number 7.
All right, sir, was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is it still your verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, next.
Number 14.
All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes, what?
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes.
And is it still your verdict?
Yes.
All right, you may be seated.
Okay, so I think it's much of the same. I'm just going to fast forward just a little bit to a different reaction.
Was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes.
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes.
And is it still your verdict?
Yes.
All right, next.
Number 48.
All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is it still your verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can be seated.
Number 50.
All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room?
Yes, sir.
Was the verdict agreed to by you?
Yes, sir.
And is it still your verdict?
And I don't know if she's realizing, because I think she was out on bail. And so she's about to be remanded into custody. So she does end up getting um, handcuffed and taken to
Two.
custody. And they're going to schedule sentencing sometime in December. It's likely going to be sometime in December. They are still working out that date. Okay. So here we are going to jump ahead to an interview with one of the jurors. So the juror from that case did an interview. So let's
who heard the Burn Powell murder trial, juror Bethany. Bethany, good morning to you. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with what influenced you the most hearing this case?
For me personally, it was just the overwhelming, in my opinion, evidence that she was there during the opportune times for the murder and the cleanup. And that even though Scott had presence on the property during, those like between 12 and 6 a.m., it didn't seem like there was any kind of an opportunity. It didn't seem like there was any kind of a motive. So just all those things. For me personally, it was just kind of like that logical conclusion of if nobody else is here to do it, then who did? And then you add in all the other stuff, and that just supported. For me personally, I wasn't quite there until over the weekend. I took over the weekend, and when I came in on Monday, I felt very at peace about
I wonder if she was one of the jurors that was holding out for the guilty. Because it sounds like over the weekend she kind of let things settle, and then she ended up coming to that to that. I don't know.
I thought had happened.
Was there ever a moment that you would say was pivotal? Was there ever kind of something with the evidence that made you go, oh wow, this for me might have really tipped the scales of justice?
Yeah, the phone calls. With
Rusty.
Yeah, with Rusty. There was a lot of conversation that I felt, there was a lot of opportunity. I felt like she could have denied it. She could have been more clear that it was appalling to her and that she had nothing to do with it. But to me personally, I felt like they just were getting their story straight carefully because they were aware that they were being recorded. So, yeah.
Sure. Bethany, being on a jury like this, obviously you're instructed not to look at any social media, watch any media about it, all of that. So perhaps unbeknownst to all of you, maybe you've found out now that the verdict was in. I don't know if you looked at it but there was a great debate going on for the duration of this trial. Tell me, what do you think? Let's start with what do you think happened? Because there were debates about who was the perpetrator, debates about how the killing happened. What's your belief when it comes to how Gary Farris was murdered and how he got on that burn pile?
I think that, first of all, I thought that it was odd that she left out the part where at least his phone traveled to a restaurant. So I think at some point while he was gone, the plan was decided to be executed. And then when he gets home, it happens. For me personally, it didn't matter whether or not it happened in the house or it happened in the yard. I didn't really care where it happened. I feel like the house showed evidence that something happened in the house. But I personally think that it's not difficult to imagine that she could have moved the body. When we got out to the site, it felt like it was a bit steeper than it looked.
Okay. So, in my personal opinion, this is Dr. Barry's personal opinion. The thing I've noticed, and we are going to go back to this. I have the juror paused, so I try to give people a good pause. So I'm going to go back to this. Individuals that see their children as objects versus people or a means to an end. And she seemed to be the fondest towards the children to the last daughter that was on her side. That was the daughter that I saw the most emotion from her. And I did not watch this entire trial. But with the children that were testifying for the prosecution, she did not she seemed cold to them. But those would still be her children. Now, she does have the self-preservation because I think Lori Vallow should have blamed Chad, but she didn't at all. And some people in a bind, they can be narcissistically defended. I do not know enough about her life and all of that to say whether or not she might have some traits. I did not follow this case close enough for that. Um, it was so long. If they could have, and I think y'all correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Like it seemed like it was long, but maybe it didn't have to be. Like, could we have turned this 4 weeks into like 2 weeks? Like, when trials are long like this, it loses. They lose my attention super easy. I like the way that Sarah Boone's trial was because it was efficient use of time, and like the testimony was bang bang. Like these are the things I need to get from this person, and we're getting to the point fast. And that's the type of testimony that I can watch and follow a little bit easier. This one, it was just a little bit harder from my brain to follow. But um, I've noticed because there are individuals that I've covered that have blamed their minor children for harming their dad, and that have just allowed their defense team to just like, and I find that problematic, but that's just my own thoughts. Do you sense contempt, entitlement? She can't stand for the jurors and tried to get away. So she tried to blame it on the physical ailment, like that she was so weak and feeble. And I don't know if that was a defense strategy as well, because a part of the crime was how did this like, she looks short, like, and it sounds like he was pretty tall. How did she have the strength to move him and to get him to the burn pile? And so I don't know if she was trying to make herself look weak and feeble. That's when defendants show up in like a wheelchair, or, and not for security reasons, because Daryl Brooks was in a wheelchair for his second trial for security reasons, so he could be shackled and all that stuff. But those are just my own personal thoughts. All right. Just gonna make sure. I could not follow I could only watch the Karen Reed trial with Emily D. Baker because she was just fussing at how just Lolly get to the point. Please just get to the point. Like I can't. I just can't. Please, if you're not happy, don't do crimes. Just don't do crimes. Seems easy. I'm gonna have way too much fun with those two buttons. Okay. If I need to add something else, I will have to do a community tab post if I should add some additional statements. Yeah, I could only watch that one. It was going way too slow. A lot of people have suspicions about because there was a tractor on the property, but we're gonna hop back into the juror right now. All right, let's go.
In the pictures. I know my own personal strength. I know I'm a bigger lady than she is, but I don't have any mental reservations. If I had to move something with everything available, I would have figured out a way to do it. Like that was not a stretch for me at all, the movement of the body. And I've forgotten. That was, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to know. Yeah, if did you think that the killing happened in the basement or outside?
I think it was shot in the basement.
Shot in the
I think it
basement.
was shot in the basement. My mental image of it is he made his way outside to some degree, and then he died, and she used equipment, or she just used gravity to get him down into that burn pile.
What about the track? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that was another thing that was a huge problem for me, was the fact that if not her, then somebody else did it. If somebody else did it, how are you unaware? That was a huge thing. Being completely unaware of shots fired, a body that size being moved, a body that size continuing having, I believe the fire had to be tended to. Somebody had to tend to it. And I don't see that happening without her being aware of it.
Sure.
Especially since she's up on the phone till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Bethany, I want to play a clip for you of.
So she was on the phone with her boyfriend Rusty until 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's where I don't know. I don't know what the state thinks about Rusty. I did not watch all of his testimony, but it's his. I don't know. I don't know how people feel.
When you all were deadlocked on Monday, that moment where the judge made that announcement and everybody watching this trial engaging in the great debates online was going, oh my goodness, they're going to go back in. Let's take a look.
We have a note that says that they are hung and do not feel like they will be able to come to a unanimous verdict. So my plan is just to bring them in and tell them that they're the.
So that's where the judge is just going to encourage them to continue going.
Tell you to go back in and keep deliberating.
Yes, we did. We knew he was going to tell us to go back in and deliberate. I feel like there was a couple of us, I don't think me so much, but there was a couple of other people that definitely had more reservations and concerns about convicting. And I don't know, I just felt like it mentally, emotionally, it was a lot for us. But we went on a lunch break, we took a breather, we came back, and we just got right back into it as if we had in the beginning, and just worked through just a couple more little things that.
She was very close, extremely close to having a hung jury. This is one of the longest deliberations that I've followed closely because I was following this case. I didn't watch every moment, but I was following it the same way I was following the Leilani Simons case. I was following this one, but I wasn't watching every moment of it.
A couple of people had issues with, and then we all felt very solid about our decision.
What were those big issues that led to the deadlock?
I would say the lack of putting the gun in her hand, the lack of, how did she get the body to there? The lack of evidence definitely caused doubt, but we overcame that with all the other evidence. That was there.
Sure. Bethany, I want to talk to you about Scott Farris, because we know the defense squarely pointed the finger at him. I mean, literally, the defense attorney you saw pointed the finger at him in the closing argument and was saying that he was the one who killed his dad. Was the jury ever stuck on that idea?
Not for very long. That was one of the first things that we did, was rule out everybody else. We just looked at what they were saying about everybody else. And did we find that there was enough evidence to consider them as a reasonable doubt? And Scott was the last one. He took longer. But in the end, that was another thing, the CPAP machine. We don't think that if he would have been alive, and killed overnight, he probably would have been attached to that CPAP machine.
And it's my understanding the defense tried to ruin poor Scott's, tried to say he's angry. They tried to portray him in the worst possible way, but he didn't seem like the father wasn't asking him to leave, or there didn't seem to be a motive for him. She seemed to have a clear financial motive. And so, let's keep it going.
That's why there's just so many things that they're little things, they're not direct things, but logically you put them together and nothing else makes sense.
Did you feel that the state of Georgia presented a clear legal theory about how Gary Farris was killed, where he was killed, how he got onto the burn pile, and who did it? Did you feel like they made everything crystal clear for you as a jury when you went back to that room?
I feel like they made everything as crystal clear as they could. And there were actually big pieces of evidence that we didn't even really look at. We didn't, like the phone call mapping where it had.
Sorry, they're talking about phone calls. So to me, she seemed to she had this stare. And she could just have, she just seemed to just stare into people. And I am going to cover her wanting a new trial. That's what we're going to talk about next. we're almost done with this one, and then we will chat about that one.
Like activity at different times and different, when she'd call phone calls. We didn't really look at that much. I can't remember the other things. There was a couple of other things that we just didn't look at very closely. But I think what they did a very, very good job of is they just kept honing in on that same point. She's the only one there. The motive was helpful, but even the motive was not something that we spent a lot of time trying to decide what is the motive. It was the timeline. We started with a timeline. We ruled other people out, and we just tried to see, could we see it any other way? We couldn't see it any other way until she did it.
Sure. And the state doesn't have to prove motive, as you know. It helps, sure, if it's there. What about the tractor? Did you believe she used that in any way to get Gary's body on the burn pile?
Yeah, I mean, some people did. I wouldn't say that she didn't, but I don't think that she would have needed to use the tractor to move the body.
Yeah. Did you find Melody Farris to be cold when you were watching her?
I mean, I guess I didn't really look at her much. My focus was always usually on like the witnesses or the prosecutor or the defense. There were a couple of times I looked over at her and I did see her crying. I think I saw a different array of emotions in her, but I definitely put a picture together of who I saw and who I was hearing on those phone calls and, seeing on the text messages and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know if I would say that she was cold, but I don't know how to answer that.
Did you find it at all disrespectful that she didn't stand for the jury when you all would enter the courtroom and exit?
Well, and that was another thing. The lawyer had mentioned that, and I didn't even notice that she didn't stand for us. But I did watch stuff when I got home last.
And so I think this juror was just looking at the evidence, and she wasn't looking. So I'm a nosy person. Like, I want to look around. I want to see how people react to stuff. Like, I would very much be looking at how the defendant is reacting to the evidence. And I think she was just focused on the evidence. We have to remember, jurors are just normal people, and they have their own like strategies. And I think this individual juror, I don't think she was trying to like, I'm such future. I'm such a people watcher. Like, my husband calls me overly helpful, because if we are out somewhere and I notice that somebody's lost, like, I have this innate, like, I want to help people, but I have to remember, like, not your job, not your, like, I don't, it's not my job to help them, especially if I know what they're looking for. And then sometimes I will, if I hear somebody externalizing, like, "Ah, I wonder where the cranberry sauce is." I'm like, "Oh, excuse me. Oh, the cranberry sauce, it's right over there. Oh, okay, thanks." I'm I'm so helpful for no reason. I'm just I'm overly helpful for no apparent reason. All right, so we're almost done with this one, and then we're gonna hop right into Sarah Boone.
Night, and I did realize that was a big issue for people, that she didn't stand. I mean, when you walk into that jury box, like me, I'm just focused on what chair am I going to sit in. I sit in that chair, and then I just start paying attention. I tried to not pay attention too much of the gallery and everything.
Sure. What a great juror you were, and your colleagues on the jury were. I mean, you all took this case very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't rush a verdict on a Friday for the weekend. You all did a fantastic job, and that's really what anyone can ask for. It's just to go through the evidence, take it seriously, uphold your oath. Would you do it again, Bethany?
If I had different circumstances in my life at the moment, I probably would. But yeah, I'm going to probably take the rest of the week off to just relax.
Atta girl.
Debrief.
It's
Because I can't imagine 3 weeks. 3 weeks of just sitting in court all day. But that's where I wonder if they were trying to make her seem feeble and like she couldn't stand. And how could she possibly move this huge, she can't even stand for y'all. But this was back in 2018. I don't know what her mobility and her physicality was back back then versus where she is now. But yeah. I I appreciate the fact that this juror, that she just focused on the facts. because I would have been thinking, because I would have been taking notes. Ooh, she reacted weird when they did that, because I'm a clinical person. I like looking at those things, and so I would have naturally brought some of that in. So the interesting thing about the Delphi jurors is that they are able to talk with one another as long as all the jurors are present. Indiana, I'm gonna look it up to see if I can find it. Indiana jurors can talk during trial. Like, what? Indiana jury rules are weird. So, wait a minute. Discuss during. Let me see where it is. It's my understanding that as long as all the jurors are present during recesses, jurors can discuss the evidence in the jury room during recess. They can discuss the case with other jurors when they're all present, at least for this case. They cannot use computers, laptops, cell phones, or any of those other things to assist. They can ask the witnesses questions in writing, but I just thought that was interesting, because sometimes having people that you can talk to, and they're all going through the similar thing, and they have a purpose in this process, where it's like they get to decide what happens. And yes, and I want to give Peter credit, because I believe I heard it from Peter first. I want to say he was one of the first people, or it was from Andrea. It was either Andrea or Peter. I pinned, because there were two other people that people recommended. I think it was Michelle After Dark, and there was somebody else. And I haven't got a chance to check that stuff out yet. Um, but yes. So let's go ahead and switch over to Sarah Boone. And y'all know I am going to cover this from that psychological aspect. So if you already saw Emily D. Baker or The Lawyer You Know or any other coverage of this, I am going to try to add a little something extra to it. There will be snark. Please, oh, please know there will definitely be snark, because I was committed to leaving Sarah Boone alone until December 2nd. And yet, here she is. But so James Owens, he filed an appeal. He is just doing his job. The Lawyer You Know even said that he is still her attorney of record, and there are certain filings that have to be done in a certain in a timely manner. So we are going to snark together, because he says alleged victim about the Torres family, and that pisses me the hell off. But that's a whole other conversation. But this is the defendant's motion for a new trial. This was just filed 11/4 at 4:56 p.m. So yesterday at 4 p.m. Almost 5 p.m. So we already know Sarah Boone was found guilty of second-degree capital M on October 25th, 2024. Feels like yesterday. Um, and this motion is filed timely, and he has the following grounds he believes. So, number one, he feels that the defendant, that the court erred in ruling that the defendant was not entitled to court-appointed counsel. Number two, the court erred in denying undersigned counsel's multiple motions for a continuance, and yet he didn't file for a recess or continuance when I really think he could have. Like, I think he could have filed it when she was like, when he had to do that on-site deposition. I don't think he was ready. In my opinion, just from my watching the trial, I feel like Owens fell apart on Thursday. Owens was confident Owens, his opening statement was great. Like he went into this trial so confident, and then he's going to have the nerve to say that he needed more time. Sir, you filed motions for hair and makeup. You should have told your client, ma'am, I need to focus on preparing for trial. I don't have time to file with the court for your hair and makeup. Like, I don't have time to ask the court about snacks when I need to be handling these other things. Like, and I love the fact that Judge Kranek got on the record over and over at every step of the process that Sarah was happy. So in this whole thing, and the lawyer is one of the ones that talked about this from this whole thing here, that he doesn't talk about how how his client was harmed based on any of these things. Like, if none of this had happened, so let's say he had gotten more time, I still think she would have been found guilty. Like, so is he saying he didn't review all the videos? Like he's over here. I think it was 5 mints. I thought it was 5 mints, Pop Tarts. Like, we're over here in cookies. We're over here wasting our time on snacks. And ma'am, I need to be preparing for trial. To me, I don't think he set enough boundaries with and I think he was prepared. I think he did as good of a job for Sarah Boone as anyone could have done. He had a whole team of people. She loved her team. She was so happy. And if she had had a court appointed counsel, she wouldn't have had all of these people. Okay, we haven't got to the part that's going to make us mad. We have to, okay. Is it the next one that's going to make me mad? Nope, not yet. Okay. Yes, it's the next one that's going to make me mad. Number 3. Y'all, okay, I have to read this out loud. The court erred in failing to grant a new trial when the alleged victims, and I'm going to cut alleged. Every time he puts alleged victim, I'm just going to say victim. When George Torres's family caused an emotional outburst in open court in the presence of the jury prior to deliberations. And I don't think so. Emily D. Baker said that a family member didn't stand up and say, she's guilty. Go to hell. Like, a family member didn't stand up and make some outrageous statement. What happened was George Torres's mother, it's my understanding, based on people that were there, it's my understanding that George Torres's mother had never seen the suitcase video. She had made it all of this time. Y'all know I am the mother to a son. And as a mom, her having to see her child in that state, and that woman refused, that person, that piece of refused to open that suitcase after all the harm that she had caused, after all the things that she had done. If I was in that courtroom, I would have had to get up and walk out. And so the defense tried to blame the state. Like, the state should have prepared her, like, should have prepared the family. They should have known. Like, she probably thought she could handle it. Or I don't know, whatever happened, she's his mom. She has every right to be there. It got to be too much, and she got up and she left. I remember during the Christopher Gregor trial, there were times that family members had to get up and leave. Family members of Corey had to get up and leave. I've seen other trials where people had to get up and leave because, but let's Owens is just doing his job. Sarah is probably really happy that he's making these statements, I don't think it's going to work. So that's the thing that gives me peace. Okay. So I have to get upset. And then I have to, like, the thing that gives me peace is none of this is going to work. Judge Cranick did a phenomenal job. And Emily D. Baker talked about the fact that she understood when it got to the rebuttal case. She understood why the prosecution was just sitting back, like, say what you want, do what you do. We don't have to cross Sarah for that long. We don't even need Brian Boone. We're going to impeach her with her own words, with the videos she recorded on her cell phone. And honestly, y'all, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the fact I honestly think if Sarah Boone had went with "it was an accident," I'm such a drunk. I have no recollection of any of that. Maybe the jury might have found manslaughter, like maybe a good attorney. And I think Patricia Cashman was the best possible attorney for her, because Patricia Cashman wouldn't have put up with her. Patricia Cashman would not have submitted for snacks and hair and makeup. Like, ma'am, no. Patricia Cashman would have done her job and she would have been prepared for court and focused on getting her client the absolute best thing possible. And manslaughter was honestly Sarah Boone's best possible option. Her doing self-defense, because without self-defense, I'm pausing because I'm having to remember those videos. Those videos from Thursday, those videos from rebuttal, and those text messages, those only come in if Sarah Boone has the balls to say she's the victim. If she hadn't done that, the state couldn't have got any of that evidence in. Sarah did this to herself and she'll never admit it. She will never ever admit it. Self-defense was a bad plan. It was a bad deal. So Sarah, remember, she knew there were videos on her phone that made him look bad. But Owens didn't realize, sir, you are dealing with somebody, in my personal feelings, has narcissistic personality disorder, not just traits. I'm talking full-blown personality disorder, that she is out here. When she looks at those videos that we all saw and our heart broke for George, she looks at those videos and she thinks it makes him look bad. She looks at those videos and she sees that she's the victim. And that's where I'm sure her and Miss Cashman's like, I've looked at all the videos, ma'am. They have videos that make you look bad. like those videos are bad for you. Like, no, like, okay, yeah, you have a video of him smashing a TV, but you're just standing there calmly recording it. Like, he looks tired. Uh-oh. He looks tired. He doesn't look aggressive and mean at all. Like, and so that's where when we talk about Sarah Boone and her personality traits and her inability to see things from other people's perspective, her inability to accept responsibility for her own actions, her viewing people as a means to an end versus as people themselves, like, and honestly, it seemed when the video starts, the TV's already broken. And he says, "Before I do this, you're gonna help me clean it up, right?" Like, that video seemed like she told him to hit it with the bat. Like, "Ha, ha, ha, like, let's play these weird games." Her testimony was trash. Her testimony, when she was on the stand talking about describing entertaining her partner, like, "I have to keep him entertained. In the morning, we have to feel like we are like he's accomplished something." What? Who talks about people like that? That's weird. And I don't even think she did that stuff. I don't know. I don't know what her relationship was like with her son. I don't know. Like, I think she was just trying to make him look bad and make herself look good. And her way of doing it just made her look worse. And that's not our fault. The jury saw exactly who she was, and that's the whole thing. Okay. The court erred in failing to, okay, yeah, I did that part. And then the court failed to disallow the opinion testimony of the state's rebuttal expert witness, Dr. Werner, after the state failed to disclose before trial the witness had formed a new opinion. Don't we all remember this whole conversation that the state did not know that anything what the state was going to elicit was the same thing as the deposition, but Dr. Werner's the one that said something different. like the question that was asked and the response Dr. Werner gave, the state wasn't aware, like they weren't trying to elicit that response. Like it was, so now we get to say unintentional. And then Owens was the one. So in this thing, he doesn't even argue the fact that he opened the door to Sarah Boone being aggressive before George. Owens is the one that asked Dr. Werner about who's really the aggressive, who's the not instigator, but like who was the aggressor. And she's looking at him like, you want to talk about it? you want to ask me? You want to ask me who the aggressor was? Sir, because I watched the deposition or I listened to the statement from Brian Boone, and he said she was aggressive towards him. And Emily D. Baker said that his deposition went better than his actual cross of her in front of the jury. But honestly, y'all, I think his emotions were so high. I don't think, because she was saying, yes, she's a battered spouse. And he's like, are you saying she's not a battered spouse? I'm saying she's a battered spouse. How can you say she's not a battered spouse? I'm saying she's a battered spouse. Like, his cross-examination of her, he made himself look like a whiny, I'm sorry, so I try to be kind of professional. He made himself look bad. He did that. She didn't do that. Like he's the one that said those things. He's the one that said it. And I don't think it's the court's fault, but he's gonna do what he does. Okay. And then the state committed prosecutorial misconduct by essentially making a second closing argument instead of a rebuttal argument. And Emily D. Baker, because I can't go in because that's the legal one. And so Emily D. Baker did a phenomenal job debunking that. And also the lawyer, if you follow either one of them, they both covered this today. All right. And so Sarah Boone, and he's going to try to say that she wasn't warned enough and that it was apparent to undersigned trial counsel, that Miss Boone would be grossly ill-prepared and unequipped to handle a trial in this matter, or in fact, to handle any other phase of the trial without counsel. Both the Sixth Amendment, blah, 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 the reasons why she should have counsel. And he's going to get to the fact that should the court determine that the defendant is not entitled to court-appointed counsel due to misbehavior on the part of the defendant, the court must follow a process, which it did. It followed the process. Exactly. Sir, did you read the judge's order? Like, the judge lists in detail everything that happened. Judge Kranek is phenomenal. And I did a video covering Judge Kranek's order when she was denied court-appointed counsel. And he taught in that one. So I can't wait, because I think Judge Kranek is going to have some words for Sarah Boone, because he threw a little snark in his in his order for this, because he included the number of days. Because to me, he modeled it like Sarah Boone's letters. And Peter is nice to look at. I get distracted easily by anything. But Judge Kranek did a phenomenal job. He maintained a phenomenal record. He cited the law, and I don't think there's going to be anything to appeal. But he's going to try. But like on this appeal to get a new trial. So that's the phase that we're at. So we're at the current phase where Owens is appealing to the trial judge to try to get a new trial. That's going to be denied, most likely. I could be wrong. But and then the appellate attorney, because Sarah Boone will likely be assigned a appellate attorney. I don't know how appeals work in Florida, but that goes to like the appeals court. It's a whole other thing to determine were any of her rights violated at the trial level. And I don't think they were, but they'll try. All right. All right. So, in the instant case, undersigned trial counsel would assert that Miss Boone's behavior did not rise to the level of misconduct to warrant a waiver of the right to court appointed counsel. And if the court determines that she waived her right to court appointed counsel, then the court failed to warn her or inform her that continued misbehavior would result in a waiver of the right to court appointed counsel. And that's why I love that we have the videos. We saw when Judge Kranek appointed Miss Cashman, he told her, like, this is it. Got to make it work. Make this work. You're not getting another one. And I think Sarah sat back and said, touche. Let's see. And she was happy at first until they got into an argument over bail, which wasn't going to happen, Sarah. It wasn't going to happen. And so, all right. Under controlling precedents, failure to appoint trial counsel can result in a motion for a new trial being granted. And he cites some law, but she had, like, he stepped up. So maybe if she would have had a better chance if she had tried to, good gosh, defend herself, which would have been so bad. It would have been so bad. If she had tried to defend herself and it went horrible, she might have been able to appeal that she should have been granted counsel. She had competent counsel. She had competent counsel. What are we doing? But we're going to do it anyway. Argument 2. The court shall not deprive a defendant of his or her right to counsel of their choice, but she probably would have chosen Owens. They were great together. And he's going to mention that he did his best to prepare for trial by traveling from Orlando to Milton on multiple occasions and to meet with Miss Boone and attending multiple hearings, and that he shut down his practice. I skipped over that part earlier. And it was impossible to adequately prepare for unforeseen issues arising during trial. A prime example of this would be reviewing hundreds of pages of text from Miss Boone C's cell phone, viewing all records of prior contact of Miss Boone and the alleged victim with law enforcement, including inadmissible hearsay by the alleged victim to law enforcement regarding Miss Boone being the aggressor at times. But he didn't ask for that to be excluded at any point. Like, he didn't object to that coming in. So is he saying he didn't know what was on the videos? I'm so confused. But counsel, for all purposes, closed his law practice down to prepare for trial, but due to the short time frame, even with the assistance of other attorneys, was simply logistically unable to be as prepared for trial as he would have liked to be. And God gave them an extra week. Can we just pause a moment? And thoughts go out to everybody impacted by the hurricane. Well, they got an extra week because of a hurricane. So he should have put this on the record. And he did. So he did file for continuances and all that stuff. Okay. It is what it is. All right. So argument 3. Is this the one that's going to make me mad? Yes, this is the one that's going to make me mad. Prior to jury deliberations, the victim's family, I'm skipping over that A word because I have another one. I'm sorry. began to audibly and visibly get upset and departed the courtroom, which is what they should do. Like they did exactly what they should have done. My heart goes out to the Torres family. He is the real victim in this, and as are they, having lost a family member to such a senseless and just ugh, ugh. I'm doing that face because of Sarah, not because of them. Undersigned counsel timely moved for a mistrial, requesting a new trial. I'm not laughing because it was going so bad. He was like, "I want a new trial." Like, no, dude. Like that wasn't enough. The court did not give any curative instruction or address whether the outburst could adversely affect the jury's deliberations. Did he ask for one? Oh, should we go back and look? Let me go. Let me see if we can find it quickly. Um, Owens. Let me see if I can quickly find it. If I can quickly find it, yes. Okay, we're gonna go there, y'all. Let's see what he said during this.
In front.
Okay, so we're gonna take a breath. Okay, he's doing his job as her attorney. He tried to do this, but I want to see what he actually said. Okay? So, we're just going to play this real quick.
Who's entitled to a fair trial. I think that right has been compromised here today. I don't know who scheduled to put the 2 detectives on the front row with the Torres family, who was the family of the victim. But they had to have known to tell them that the suitcase video, which has been around for 4.5 years, was going to be played during opening statement. And the state attorney's office or the sheriff's department had to advise them, or the victim's advocate had to advise them.
So, but he didn't ask for curative instruction, I don't believe. Okay? This pissed me all the way off. Okay? Especially not knowing where the jury was at. So I wasn't sure where the jury was at. This was very, very difficult to watch. It was difficult.
Them. That if they couldn't take it,
And sadly, I think this is why Sarah liked him and appreciated the fact. Because if I was that attorney, I would never ask for this right. Like, it's understandable that they handled it the right way. She's not entitled to a new trial because somebody left the courtroom upset. Like she's just not.
in front of a jury that's trying to decide the case, they needed to get out of the courtroom. Now, what happened here today should not ever happen. There should be safeguards in place.
So for people, just see how calm, so we talk about Judge Kranek's zen. Look at Mr. J. Like, it's so big for this one. Do y'all see Mr. J? Mr. J is just waiting. Because he knows this is a bunch of BS. So this is where lawyers are just lawyering. Okay. So that's why I try to be he's just being a lawyer. Let him do his thing. He's trying to do his best for his client, but this isn't gonna go his way. It's just not.
No room for this after 2 weeks of murder trial for something like that to happen. One of the Torres members of the family audibly during the 2-minute suitcase video expressed some kind.
I don't even think he knows what happened. I think somebody came and told them. So that's what somebody else mentioned. He didn't say who it was. I don't think he knows exactly who it was that did. I think they were informed that this happened. I don't know that he knows exactly who it was that had to leave. Or he's knowing this looks bad and he's not going to call that it was the mother. Cuz I do believe, according to court reports, it was his mom. Mr. J is just like, and then the jury only took an hour and a half That's all they did.
Of emotional reaction. I look back, he or she were bent over in agony, physical pain. The physical pain followed the audible announcement. You can't unring that bell. That's their responsibility to ensure that kind of thing front row for a mistrial.
Response.
I've never heard of such a request. The victim's family has a right to be here. They were advised as to what will be used during closing arguments. I cannot make a decision for the victim's family and the homicide survivors as to whether or not they believe they can handle it. She clearly, or he, I don't know, couldn't, and I believe the appropriate thing was done. They left the court. But again, to say this is intentional sabotage and all the accusations that continuously get made are unsubstantiated. And it does not warrant a mistrial. People get warned, and sometimes they misjudge their own emotions. I don't understand what test we are expected to run on homicide survivors. So the motion should be denied.
Motion's denied.
So I'm laughing because Judge K was just so calm with it. I'm not laughing because this was actually funny, because this is actually like that was sad. That was incredibly insulting to the family, in my personal opinion. But Judge Kranek was just like, motion denied. And Owens did not ask for a special, because what if the jurors missed it? What if they didn't even see that somebody got upset? Why are you going to bring attention to it? Like, it just, and I think that's why Mr. J was just like, because even Judge Kranek is just kind of looking at him. Like, oh my gosh. Like, Judge Kranek is my all-time. I thought, y'all know, I thought the Murdaugh judge was going to be my favorite of all times. Hands down, Judge Kranek, because of his understanding and like of the law. Like, he knows in his mind when he's asking, what's the law? Like, I think he already knows the answer. Like, I think he already has case law in his mind of what he's gonna say. All right. Okay. Okay. And then so the good thing is Owens is finding case law, but I personally think that some of this, the case law he's citing, I would love to know, was it an outburst where the person said, where they like tried to attack? Because I've seen that before, where like a victim's family member tried to tried to go at the defendant, or things like that will cause a mistrial. Just getting emotional during testimony or during the trial and getting up and leaving, that's not, in my opinion, that's not grounds for mistrial, but we'll see. All right. And so Owens tries to say that the court is unable to determine if this outburst affected the jury's decision. I don't think it did. I don't think it did. It's my understanding that on Friday, after watching those videos of George, after hearing the testimony of Dr. Brannon and Dr. Harper and also Dr. Werner, how could you not look at those videos and see that's like the victim was George? Because the worst video she could find was him like hitting a TV where she's not even like yelling, she's not even saying anything, she's just recording him destroy a TV, which most victims of DV, you would not record the person harming you, because that they could harm you worse if you take out your phone and record. I can't. All right. Was Glanville, was that the first judge in the YSL? And he ends up getting charged, and we're waiting for his sentencing for that incident. That was Deobra Redden out of Las Vegas, and he pled but he was the actual defendant. He wasn't even, yeah, he was the actual defendant. And he was charged with attempted capital M of the judge. And he pled guilty but mentally ill, which is an option in Las Vegas. All right. Oh, like those judges have been hard. Because to me, when I'm watching a judge rule, to me, they shouldn't favor one side over the other. I know I'm going to make myself big again for this one. I'm sure a lot of us were frustrated that Sarah was able to get a self-defense, um, that self-defense evidence in, because the judge had to determine, was there that scintilla of evidence? Scintilla. Was there enough to say, yes, she could present a self-defense? And she, on the stand, she said he made threats, but she can't remember what happened. You know, is it less than a minute before? Because she took a picture and then he's in the suit. She doesn't remember taking the picture, but she remembers clearly what happened in those minutes magically, but never said that to anybody else. I can't. I can't. And the judge let it in. She probably would have had a really good um right to an appeal if he hadn't let the self-defense in. And I think her letting in self-defense actually solidified second degree. Like that's where her depraved heart. I thought the suitcase video, y'all, I'm telling you, I thought the suitcase video was what showed depraved heart in this case. It was those other videos. It was her weaponizing, in my opinion, the police against a person of color. It was the racism in her text messages. I didn't talk about that. So I didn't talk about her. And I believe the family's Puerto Rican, and Sarah got straight A's, but does she know Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory? Does she know that? I have to do a correction. So Washington D.C. does have electoral votes. We're not thinking about anything. I haven't even checked. I'm so proud. I haven't checked any results. I don't. And please, no spoilers in the chat. We are having a drama-free. Like we are just here avoiding all of those things. Do you think Sarah thought all those videos made? Yes, I do. I think that Sarah thought those videos made George look bad. And not just the cops, but the jury. I think she thought the jury would be on her side because she, in my opinion, is incapable of thinking she's done anything wrong because she minimized her drinking. So, do y'all think for any second that she didn't tell George to go to Publix to get that second bottle of wine? Anybody think he was going to get cigarettes and accidentally ended up at Publix with her debit card to get a second bottle of wine? I think she told him to. I don't think, like, she downplayed her alcoholism, in my opinion. Like, I think she told him to go. I honestly, I think she told him to get in the suitcase. She might have been hitting him with the bat before he even got in. I think she told him to get in. Seeing him, trigger warnings, seeing him crouched in the corner. I have seen children like that. It's happened in my office. I've seen adults revert back to a trauma like that. To see her emotional and psychological harm. And we don't talk enough about the fact that emotional and psychological harm, it can be hard for people to leave if they're not putting their hands on them. And I do think she was putting her hands on him because he was saying, like, she puts her hands on me. Like I think she was being harmful in every way towards him. And he deserved better. And I wish he knew that. I wish he knew nobody gets to treat you that way. I also didn't talk about the fact, I think I did a little bit, but I want to go into it a little bit more. Owens, in my opinion, my personal opinion, some of his statements to the jury, it was almost like Sarah gets to do this because no matter what a woman does to you, you never put your hands on her. Now, I agree, people shouldn't put their hands on each other. Okay. But I don't care who it is, if somebody is attacking my child, he has a right to defend himself. And I want to teach him like self defense so that he can try to do it without harming the other person. There's something called Aikido. There are defensive things. There is self defense that you can learn how to keep yourself safe um, without causing harm to the other person. But I don't think she should have done any of that. And I don't think his closing was disjointed. It was so I think he doesn't like to lose. So I don't know that Owens has anything going on. What I personally saw is when he thought he was winning, he was confident. He was strong. As his case started to tank, and a good lawyer can look at the jury and see if they're on their side or not. I think he had the jury on his side from opening statements, showing them those pictures of her 'cause I think he did that on opening. Did he do that on opening? Did he show images of her injuries? Something like, but he talked about that it was gonna be battered spouse and all that. Like he said all those things. He was doing great until Thursday. That expert he thought was on his side, everything went downhill after that. And in my opinion, he didn't recover. And in my personal opinion, I don't think that the other lawyers, I don't think they helped. Like if I was on his team, I would be like, "Yo man, like let me help you out with this or let me or but he I don't know if he had pride and wouldn't accept it. I don't know. It was so it was and it didn't help. So the state was getting under his skin on purpose because he was already upset. So it didn't take much. The state was appropriately objecting. Um and it didn't go well. All right, I'm gonna make myself small. We're gonna finish this. All right. So, all right. I'm getting excited because I enjoyed Dr. Werner's testimony. I honestly I thought that the jury might have found Dr. Harper more credible than Dr. Werner because Dr. Werner didn't spend as much time with Sarah. But they also might have thought, oh, spending all those hours over all those years with Sarah, did Sarah manipulate the doctor? Like, I don't know what the jury was thinking. I'm just trying to think like maybe less time with her lets you see clearer. I don't know. Um, and because Dr. Warner was agreeing, yes, she has battered spouse. Because if I was Owens, I would have reminded the jury that battered spouse is still in the trauma and stressor because that's not in my DSM-5. Battered BSS isn't in here, but it would be in that trauma and stressor related. But what she was saying is in that moment, what Sarah told me is that she was mad. That's why she said she didn't like, she said she was mad. She didn't tell me anything. And so Owens is gonna make a big deal that the expert didn't watch Sarah's testimony. His expert didn't watch Sarah's testimony. They're also gonna talk about the fact neither one of his experts watched Sarah's testimony, but, um, he's gonna be upset that their expert didn't watch some of this testimony. So let's read it. The issue was discussed extensively in the expert witness's deposition taken on October 4th, 2024, where he was just mad and just kind of fussing, but it's okay. The state committed prosecutorial misconduct. That's a pretty, by failing to disclose this new opinion as agreed in the deposition mentioned above. But the state put on the record that they weren't aware that that was the answer she was going to give on the stand. In addition, the state's expert opinion on whether the defendant perceived an imminent threat necessary for the justifiable use of force for BSS was improper. But I gotta miss a little big for this. But at the same time, I think he might feel that his expert saying that she was justified in using force because she was a battered spouse. But for some reason, the state expert can't do it. And I apologize. Nightbot helps with spammers. I'm sorry. That's what the whole thing is. I know. I'm sorry about Nightbot. But yeah. Like the double standard here, and I wonder if I don't know if the judge is even going to bring that up. I don't even know if it matters, but he's trying to say that this person couldn't give this opinion when forensic psychologists are able to give their opinion based on their evaluation. Does this meet the legal definition? And they just give their opinion, and the jury's the one that decides what weight to give that opinion. Like, dude, but it is what it is. Furthermore, the state's expert testimony on this issue of whether the defendants, oh, yes, I read that part. Okay. When a witness is asked to express an opinion that applies to a legal standard to set the facts, an opinion testimony is generally in what? But she's an expert witness. I'm sure this is wrong. I don't even know if anybody else pointed that out because expert witnesses can give opinions. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's true. They'll have to decide that part. Does not permit a witness to testify to legal conclusions, but expert witnesses I thought could. It's not my monkeys, not my yeah. This testimony may interfere with the function of the trial judge to determine the applicable law. Okay. But I skipped the part where he talked about that she didn't watch. So here we go. The state's expert admitted she had not listened to the defendant's testimony before the jury before forming her opinion on this ultimate issue of fact, which he could elicit from her. And then the jury knows, oh, maybe she didn't hear that part of the magical 9 minutes that she came up with. Okay. In addition, Dr. Warner failed to listen to the testimony of Dr. Brannon and Dr. Julie Harper, which she didn't have to. Her testimony was not going to change. And so, y'all. I've said it before EDB. So that's my whole thing of staying in my lane. So I've been saying not my monkeys, not my circus. I've been saying that for a minute. I will give people credit when I get things from other people. And I know you weren't saying that I did that, so I know you weren't saying that. I love to clarify. Um, y'all, okay. I've distracted us for as long as I can. I'm gonna go eat some pizza, and I am going to watch. Let me open Netflix. So my thing, because a new season of, is it Lilibet? It starts with a L. What is it? Lydia Poet? Something on Netflix. Leo, that one. Lydia Poet. I'm gonna watch that. Okay. I haven't watched season 2 yet. And y'all, take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. I appreciate you all for being here. If you haven't, click the like button. Please go ahead and do that. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe. I will see you all on Saturday, unless something major happens before then. And nothing bad, but like, unless I got a moment to come back before then. So I'm going to watch something that doesn't interrupt. So if you're watching anything on cable news, they're going to interrupt for election updates. And I know I don't want to know anything for a little bit longer. I'm glad I was able to provide this distraction. I will see y'all next time. Bye. Have a good night.